In this video, we're going to continue with analyzing graphs of polynomial functions, but this time we're going to focus on the zeros, relative maxima, and relative minima. We've learned about zeros before. Remember, zeros are your x-intercepts. So that's where your graph crosses the x-axis. And then you've learned about maximum and minimum points because when we had quadratic functions, they either had a high point, a max, or a low point, a min. Now, polynomials have several turning points, so they could have more than one max or min. This time, they're called relative maximum and relative minimum because it's a high point and a low point, but it's not necessarily the highest or lowest point in the whole graph. So here, if you look at the relative maximum, that's a high point. Your relative minimum is a low point. You'll notice, though, it's not the lowest point in the whole graph, but it's a low point relative to the area that it's in. So now we're going to answer several questions. We're going to determine the values at which the zeros are located first. So I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to focus on the zeros right now. So this one has a 0 or x-intercept here, here, and here. And I'm just going to estimate where those are at. So this one looks like it's at about -3. So there's a 0 at x equals -3. This one looks at it, gets at about, it's a little bit less than -1, so maybe -1.25. And there's one more right here, close to 2, so I'm going to estimate it at x equals 1.75. Again, I'm just estimating, but that one's closer to 2. So this one has 3 zeros, and these are their locations. Again, zeros are your x-intercepts. If we look at the second graph, this one only has 1 0. It's about right here. I'm going to say that's at about x equals -2.75. Because it's close to -3, but not quite at -3. Again, this is just an estimate. Next, we're going to estimate the x-coordinates at which the relative maxima and relative minima occur. So if we look at graph 1, I'm going to start by locating the maxima, or maximum points. Those are high points. So this one has a high point right here. And that's at about x equals 0. Again, that's a max because it's a high point. Next, I'm going to locate the relative minimum. So that would be down here. And I know that because it's a low point. And that happens at x equals -2. We look at our second picture. This one has several maximums and minimums. So let's start with the maximums. I see one here, and I see one here. This one's at about -2, and this one's at about 1. Now I'm going to check if it has relative minimum. I see one right here. And I see one right here. Again, those are my low points. This one occurs at -1, and this one occurs at about 2.5. So your maximums are your high points. If it's plural, you say maxima. Your minimums are your low points. If it's plural, you say minima. And again, there can be more than one high point or low point on your graph. Here we're just saying the x coordinates that they occur at.